Hello, everybody. My name is Sara Schmitt. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the president of the Beaverton Education Association.
And howdy, y'all. My name is Lindsay Ray. I also use she, her pronouns, and I'm the vice president of the BEA.
All right, so it has been a while since we last posted a video with an update on bargaining, and we know that folks are interested in knowing about how things are going with our negotiations over working conditions for in-person instruction.
So to explain a little bit about the bargaining process and who's involved, because like everything else that shifted in the last couple of weeks. So our team for the demand bargain process is myself, Sara Schmitt, our BEA president. And then we also have Leslie Munoz and Box Bond, who are consultants from the Oregon Education Association, who are working with us. We started this process with several meetings with a group of BSD leaders that included representatives from teaching and learning, from facilities, from HR, and from student services. In those sessions, we heard about tentative BSD plans for LIPI and hybrid instruction, and we exchanged proposals back and forth to try to come to an agreement on parameters and language for a memorandum of understanding, which is an MOU.
Exactly. So in an effort to speed up the process and come to some agreements, our last 3 meetings have been with a slightly different group of district leaders. So these meetings have been with our team that Lindsay just listed, and then for the district, Superintendent Don Grotting, Deputy Superintendents Ginny Hansman and Carl Mead, and then Susan Rodriguez, who is the Chief Human Resources Officer. So in those smaller meetings, we just kind of cut right to the chase and focused on what our main interests are to ensure a safe return in person that would meet student needs and also set educators up for success. So we kind of started by looking in that group at our overarching interests.
So we're going to share those interests with y'all right now. We do have 9 of them. And the first one is that we believe that educators should do remote or live face-to-face instruction, not both of those simultaneously. We also know that the vast majority of our secondary members do not support the simulcast model.
Right. As much as we can, we want to have consistency in the instructional model across our levels. And really just more than that, just consistency and stability for our students and staff. We've been negotiating a lot this year over working conditions. There have been a lot of changes, and we just want to have the ground stay stable underneath us for the rest of the school year.
That'd be nice. We also want to maintain a remote only work option for CDL and have staff who can perform those work responsibilities remotely. We want to make sure that we can reduce the risk of exposure and offer safety for our members who are in high risk categories.
Another one of our big interests is making sure that the workload for our members is manageable. We know our students are successful when educators are able to give them individual attention. Folks are already very overworked this year, and we want to address that by keeping CDL and hybrid class sizes approximately the same size and make sure that all of our other workload is manageable.
Next up, of course, is just following the COVID safety protocols that include everything from contact tracing to isolating if you have symptoms, to cleaning and disinfecting, to screening folks as they come into work sites. And the acknowledgement that all of these protocols will require additional staffing. This goes beyond the staffing that we currently have.
The reason why we're in this situation is because we're in a pandemic. One of our interests is to have easily accessible COVID testing for staff. Also for students, we know that identifying and isolating cases is a really important way to mitigate the spread of COVID-19, and we wanted to make sure that that's something that is available for folks.
And speaking of mitigating the spread of COVID-19, we also have an interest in additional paid leave for folks who need to quarantine or isolate due to exposure or an actual illness, COVID-19 illness, to incentivize employees to stay at home if they're sick instead of coming to work and spreading the disease.
Mm-hmm. We also are very interested in making sure that we're prioritizing teaching and relationships over testing and assessment. Educators need to have the freedom in any situation, wherever students are, to make sure we're making curriculum decisions based on student needs, and that we're not focusing valuable instructional time on standardized tests. We all agree that social and emotional learning is really important, especially in this moment, and we want to make sure that those things are prioritized.
And then last but certainly not least, one of our interests is having childcare solutions for working parents who have school-aged children whose school schedule probably won't match their work schedule. So we know that the hybrid schedules that have been proposed do create a challenge for our members who are working parents, and we're hoping for some creative solutions for those members.
Right. Okay, so those are some of the overarching interests that have been guiding our team in the process. That's not an exclusive list of things we've been talking about, obviously, but just some of the overarching themes. I think it's really important to note at this point that not all of those things that we just listed are mandatory subjects of bargaining. So even though we may not come to agreements on all of those things in an MOU through bargaining, our conversations in this process have opened up a dialogue with district leaders that we see is leading to some creative solutions and some progress happening outside of bargaining. So again, we may not secure all of those things in an MOU, but we want to make sure that those things are being addressed to the fullest extent possible.
Right. So you might be wondering, why is this whole thing taking so long? It feels like we have been bargaining for years, which, I mean, we have always been bargaining, right? So this particular process is a demand to bargain. And what we're bargaining is a response to changes in working conditions. So it's hard to negotiate that when we don't know what those changes to working conditions are. And as you might notice, BSD's plans keep changing. Also, when it comes to the instructional model and the impact on educator workload, it's super important to acknowledge that in the world that we live in right now, there are no perfect solutions here. There are pros and cons to each of the plans, and we are working to come to the very best agreement that we can, depending on what the district determines. As a reminder, we negotiate over the impacts of the changes to the working conditions. So we have to wait and see what they choose and go from there.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And it's taking a little while because like you said, those things keep changing. However, we do have some things that have been decided already. So as of this week, we have some agreements on some of our items in our proposals, primarily around health and safety protections and when we would reopen for in-person instruction. So we're really excited about that. We have some really big wins actually, and we're really proud of some of the things that we have secured that will not only keep our members safe, but are also going to keep our students and our families safe. So we have shared those with members, and we will continue to update folks with the things that we have agreed upon in that process.
So what's left, we have just a couple of small things. So primarily-
that was sarcasm.
So primarily plan time, workload, and other impacts that are resulting from the instructional model that BSD goes with. So we're still at it.
That's right. And I just want to add also, we have been asking, this should have been one of our interests. It's the overarching theme for more member input in decision making, right? And that's not new to this bargain process. But another thing that we have secured is some meetings with educators to look at the plans and get educator voice, the folks that are doing the work with students, to be a part of the implementation process, since educators know classrooms best working with students and can help provide information and details for the implementation. And that is coming up here real quickly. So just in closing, we know this year has been really challenging as we move forward into this next phase of educating students in a pandemic. We know, and as we continue through the bargaining process, we know it's going to be really important for us to continue to support one another as colleagues and also as fellow union members. Just a reminder, we are going to the bargaining table again this spring to negotiate our full contract. And a bargaining team is strongest when the membership is united and everyone's on board together. Unions work best when we stick together, particularly in hard times. And so, we ask that you keep yourself updated, reach out to your union reps if you have questions, keep looking for these videos, and make sure that you are supporting your colleagues and keeping our union strong. Again, things have been changing super rapidly. We're going to try to get you information as much as we can. We want to make sure what we're sharing with you is accurate and current and helpful. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your support and all of the work that you do to support students, and hang in there.
Thanks, y'all. I love the fact that you were like, this should have been one of our interests.
But it's always, yeah.
It's understood. It's the silent interest.